Scammers are stealing billions of dollars from America's seniors, and they're ramping up their efforts. With calls, texts, or clicks, they can steal a senior's entire life savings. But we have the power to stop these criminals. AARP is fighting for bipartisan, common-sense solutions to protect older Americans' hard-earned money from scammers. Join us today. Visit action.aarp.org/fraud pledge. Paid for by AARP.
Welcome to the program. No Victocrats allowed because we've got a country to save. So let's get her teed up!
You want to play rock? Say hello to my little friend. What the hell's going on out here?
Ooh, that's a bingo.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are Salem News Channel, another action-packed 3-hour show. Secretary of State Marco Rubio held a press conference a little while ago about the status of the war against Iran. We're going to talk to a California state lawmaker about the California bullet train, which is now estimated to cost over $231 billion. B as in bodacious, when the original estimate was $33 billion. We're also going to talk to a member of an organization that was condemned by the Southern Poverty Law Center, now accused of giving money to the very hate groups the Poverty Law Center supposedly condemns. Seattle socialist mayor says if millionaires leave her state because of the new wealth tax, well, goodbye. Despite a third assassination attempt, the Trump administration is still being compared to Nazi Germany. President Trump weighs in on the Bill Maher-Gavin Newsom interview. All of this and more. The number, 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. Dissent, of course, is welcome. We start with the briefing held just a little while ago by the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and then we're going to play some of the Q&A for you. Number 49.
The weekend, the president announced this Project Freedom, and the goal of it is to, frankly, if you want to talk about it, it's to rescue like almost 23,000 civilians from 87 different countries that are trapped inside of the Gulf and left for dead in the Persian Gulf by this Iranian regime. You know, for more than 2 months now, these innocent sailors and commercial crew members have been stranded out at sea because Iran is conducting something that's not just criminal. It's criminal for sure, but it's desperate and destructive, this blockade of the Straits of Hormuz. Nations from around the world, the overwhelming majority of whom are not even engaged in any military hostilities, are now at risk not just of losing their cargo, but the lives of their own citizens because of this blockade. These ships, you know, you don't leave a ship out there for this long. You start running out of food. You start running out of potable water, essential supplies, and they're at the mercy of this piracy. What it is, it's piracy. And not only that, but some of them have seen, you know, been open fire on and rained down senseless attacks on several civilian ships already. So frankly, the way to put it, these are innocent bystanders. These are countries that and ships and so forth that have nothing to do with any of this and nonetheless are being caught in the middle of it and being held hostage merely because Iran could do that, just because of just as the regime brutally slaughtered tens of thousands of their own citizens for the crime of peaceful protest, because they're unhappy with the quality of life or the lack of quality of life in Iran today. And so they're sitting ducks. They're isolated, they're starving, they're vulnerable, and at least 10 sailors have already died as a result of the civilian sailors. So already many nations privately and some publicly have asked the United States to help free their ships and to restore freedom of navigation in the Straits of Hormuz and this critical artery of global trade. And so President Trump, as he always does, stepped up and answered the calls for their help. And he's directed the United States military to guide these stranded ships to safety, to provide a protective bubble under which they can operate and move product and get themselves out of there and out of harm's way. And this is the first step towards reopening the strait and bringing this regime's last-ditch act of economic arson, bringing that to a close. We're doing it not only because we were asked, but because we're the only ones who can. We have the power to sort of take the steps that we've taken now. Under this president, under President Trump, the United States will help our friends. We're going to stand up to rogue regimes like the one in Tehran, and we're going to be unashamed to use our power and our abilities to project military power in the service of our national interest above all else. Now, what's really important for you to report and for everyone to understand is this is not an offensive operation. This is a defensive operation. And what that means is very simple. There's no shooting unless we're shot at first. Okay? We're not attacking them. But if they're attacking us or they're attacking a ship, you need to respond to that. You're not going to let some fast boat come up on a ship and shoot it up. we're going to respond to it. And we've been successful at it. I don't know what the exact number is, but I know a number of those fast boats have now been targeted and will continue to be if they pose a threat to our forces. We'll shoot down drones, we'll shoot down missiles, but it's defensive in nature. This is defensive. So if you hear stories about attacks and launching of firing back and forth, it's not back and forth. We are only responding if attacked first. This is a defensive operation, and that's what's occurring here. Just about the importance of the Straits for a moment. This is approximately a quarter of the world's oil trade, along with significant volumes of fuel and fertilizer that operate through the Straits of Hormuz. The Iranian regime cannot be allowed to dictate who uses this vital waterway. I don't think this is also being reported enough. Maybe you are reporting. I don't read everyone. I don't many damn outlets here. I don't know who you all are, but I mean, I know who some of you are, but I don't know all of you are. But I will say this about it. This is an international waterway. Okay, this is an international waterway. And international law is very clear, and I love it because everybody always talks about international law, and this international law on this is very clear. International waterways, no country can control them. There is no international law that allows you to say, I'm going to put mines in an international body of water and I'm going to blow up ships that don't listen to us and try to go through. That's what Iran is doing. This is a criminal act. And someone needs to do something about it. Something needs to be done. It's completely illegal, completely illegitimate, and completely unacceptable. And that's why the United States military is guiding stranded commercial ships safely through the strait and is working to restore freedom of navigation and putting an end to these efforts to hold the global economy hostage. So far, as a proof of concept and as a proof of function, 2 U.S. flag merchant ships have successfully transferred the Strait of Hormuz in the first stages of this project, and they're now safely on their way. The U.S. military is deploying the necessary assets to extend this defensive umbrella over commercial shipping. But there should be no mistake. And as I said this already, this is a defensive operation. I want to reiterate that point. This is important to understand. If no shots are fired at these ships and no shots are fired at us, we're not firing shots. But if we're fired on, we will respond, and we will respond with lethal efficiency. The assets supporting this project, by the way, include guided missile destroyers, over 100 land and sea-based aircraft, multi-domain unmanned platforms, and 15,000 of the finest military service members on the planet. These forces have already destroyed, as I told you earlier, I thought it was 6, it's 7 Iranian fast boats that failed to heed our warnings. And by fast boats, we're talking about, some of these things look like Boston whalers. Okay, so these are not like Navy ships. But nonetheless, they come fast at these boats, try to swarm them, try to harm them. We're not going to let that happen. So 7 of them now sit at the bottom of the sea, along with, by the way, the rest of Iran's Navy. That's where you can find their Navy today. And we're going to continue to systematically clear this passageway through the straits to restore freedom of navigation. Now, while this project steadily progresses, Operation Economic Fury, continues to impose maximum pressure on the Iranian regime and what remains of their already frail economy. Today, inflation in Iran is 70%, and their currency is in total and complete freefall. U.S. sanctions enforcement is stepping up. It's moving in lockstep with the naval blockade to degrade Iran's capacity to generate, to move, and repatriate revenue. It directly targets the regime's primary revenue lifelines. The blockade alone is costing Iran as much as $500 million a day in lost revenue. 90% of total Iranian trade has been halted, causing permanent damage to Iran's oil infrastructure as wells are forced to shut in. Again, all of this is in response to their piracy. Okay, it cannot be that you have these straits and they blow up any ship that moves and the only ships that get to go through are theirs. You can't have a situation in which the straits are closed to everyone else, but they benefit from the piracy. That can't happen. That's why the blockade is in place, and that's why these sanctions are crippling them. Any foreign financial, and by the way, Treasury is now identifying and cutting off every dollar of revenue that's flowing to this regime. And so, look, any foreign financial institution or commercial actor that enables Iran's sanctions evasion is going to face secondary sanctions exposure and a loss of access to the U.S. financial system. As President Trump has said, and the facts clearly bear out, the United States of America holds all the cards. There is no scenario here in which if they decide to join a ladder of escalation, they wind up getting the last say. But our preference is for these straits to be opened to the way they're supposed to be opened, back to the way it was. Anyone can use it, no mines in the water, nobody paying tolls. That's what we have to get back to, and that's the goal here. Every day the conflict continues, however, our leverage on Iran will continue to increase, and their position will continue to weaken, especially as the blockade really begins to bite in conjunction with the sanctions. So, look, the time's come for Iran to make a sensible choice. And it's not easy for them to do that, obviously, because they have a fracture in their own leadership system, and apart from that, I mean, the top people in that government are, to say the least, they're insane in the brain. And so we need to address that, and it's difficult because it's hard to get past that in their system. But it's important for them to make a sensible choice and the one that's right for their people. The president, our president, has proven time and again that his preference is peace. But Iran must accept the reality of this situation and come to the negotiation table and accept terms that are good for them but ultimately good for the world. The diplomatic path, if there's a real diplomatic path, I'm not always going to be one, but if there's a real diplomatic path and we continue to explore it, Steve and Jared are working on that very hard. If there is one there, it could be one that leads them to reconstruction, to prosperity, and to stability, and to not posing a threat to the world. The alternative is growing isolation, economic collapse, and ultimately total defeat. I know what the right choice is for Iran. I hope that the people over there making decisions will make the right one. The last point I would make, and it really is important for them to understand this, is they really shouldn't test the will of the United States, at least not under President Donald Trump. He has proven time and again that he will back up what he says.
We will return with Marco Rubio in just a second. By the way, Barack Obama admitted he made a mistake in not supporting Iran when they had their protests in 2008, 2009. We'll talk about that later on. I'm Larry Elder. Parents, the biggest question in education today is how artificial intelligence is shaping the way your student learns. Artificial intelligence is changing education faster than most schools are willing to admit, and many families are rightly concerned. At Patrick Henry College, the goal isn't to outsource thinking to machines. It's to train students to think for themselves. PHC emphasizes a Christian liberal arts education that develops reasoning, writing, speaking, and discernment skills no algorithm can replace. Students learn to engage technology wisely, understanding its capabilities, but also its danger and limitations, rather than becoming dependent on it. In a world increasingly shaped by AI, Patrick Henry College prepares students to lead with wisdom, conviction, and moral clarity. If you want a college that prepares your child to lead in an AI-driven world without losing his or her faith and values, I encourage you to learn more about Patrick Henry College. Visit phc.edu/elder. That's phc.edu/elder. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are Salem News Channel. In October of 2022, former President Obama was on a podcast, and he talked about his failure to publicly support the 2009 protests in Iran. He called it a missed opportunity. Quote, "In retrospect, I think that was a mistake. Every time we see a flash, a glimmer of hope, of people longing for freedom, I think we have to point it out. We have to shine a spotlight on it. We have to express some solidarity about it. There is deep satisfaction within the Iranian regime," he said. He said that women in particular are suffering under a series of arbitrary and cruel discrimination. He said there was a big debate in the White House 2009, 2010 about whether I should publicly affirm what was called a green movement. There was some thought that we were somehow going to be undermining their street cred if I got involved. But he says I was wrong. Quote, "Our moral response to the incredible courage that is taking place in Iran and those women and girls who are on the streets knowing that they are putting themselves in harm's way to speak truth to power is to affirm what they do and hope that it brings about more space for the kind of civic conversation that over time can take that country down a better path," close quote. Yet, from what I can tell, he's not said anything at all supportive about what we're doing right now in Iran. Back to Secretary of State Marco Rubio, number 50.
This is a long-standing problem for them, right? I mean, they have always said they don't want a nuclear weapon. That's because they've always said that. They just don't mean it. And why do you say, well, how do you know they don't mean it? Well, we don't mean it because they're doing all the things, and historically have tried to do all the things that you do if you want a nuclear weapons program. For example, they innovate and try to innovate long-range delivery missiles that now, in some cases, are capable of reaching much of Europe. They build these large underground centrifuges for enrichment activity. There are countries in the world that are involved in the enrichment business, but these guys do it in mountains and in caves and in hiding. They've always had secret components of their nuclear program undisclosed to the world, and we know for a fact that they retain highly enriched uranium at 60%, that they did so, and that has no civilian use, none, zero whatsoever. So they have an opportunity here to agree to something that will make it clear that they're not interested in one thing is to say we don't want a nuclear weapon. Another thing is to do the things that prove you don't want a nuclear weapon. By the way, if what Iran wants is a civilian nuclear program for power plants and stuff like that, there are a lot of countries in the world that have that, and they don't enrich. They import the enriched material. They could have that if that's what they wanted, but they're not acting like that's what they wanted. They're acting like they want a military, nuclear program. That's unacceptable. So that's the process we're engaged in now. To create, that's the object of this diplomacy, is to come up with some level of understanding about what are the topics that they've agreed to negotiate on. We don't have to have the actual agreement written out, and one day this is highly complex and highly technical. But we have to have a diplomatic solution that is very clear about the topics that they are willing to negotiate on and the extent and the concessions they're willing to make at the front end in order to make those talks worthwhile. That's what Stephen Jarrett and the whole team is working on, and I hope to have good news on it. That's the outcome we would prefer. That's the outcome we would have preferred a year ago. That's the outcome I think most of us would have preferred a long time ago. But that's not the option they've given us, given their activity.
About why we're blockading their blockade, number 51.
The first one on the blockade. And so why do we have a blockade? We have a blockade because they shut down the straits. So I don't know which members of Congress you're talking to, but here's what I would ask them. I would ask everybody here. It's very simple. These guys have shut down the Straits of Hormuz. This is what Iran is saying. We will shut down the straits. No one can go through. No country in the world can go through unless we allow you to go through, and you have to pay us. But our ships can go through, meaning the Iranian ships, as much as they want. That's crazy. Who would agree to that? So how are we going to have a situation where they get to close the straits to everybody, and the only people who are allowed to go through there 100% without paying anything are the Iranians? If you do that, they'll keep the straits closed forever. They're trying to make this some new normal. Okay, under no circumstances can we ever allow them to normalize the fact that they get to blow up commercial ships and put mines in the water. So the response to that is we're going to blockade your ships. If everyone's ships are not getting out, your ships are not getting out either. That's not an act of war. That's a defensive measure. It's a counter to what they have decided to do. You know what is an act of war? Putting mines in the water. Why don't the members of Congress, whoever it is complaining about it, they should be all over that. These guys put mines in the water. That alone, mining in the water is illegal, period, under any circumstances, and they've done it. This is crazy stuff, but this is what they've done.
On Trump's message to the Iranian people, number 52.
Look, ultimately, what the president is expressing, and I think has repeatedly, is he wished the Iranian people had, look, he's heartbroken by these images. You think about it, you're an Iranian, okay? You're unhappy that your economy doesn't work for you. You don't have freedom. You don't have an opportunity to express yourself. You've got friends that have been shot in the head because they're out protesting. And it's heartbreaking to him to see that these people are abused in this way and have no measures to take against their own government as a result of it. By the way, this goes back, if you guys remember the protests in 2009 where they slaughtered people in the street. This is a vicious regime, guys. Okay? These are people that hang people from cranes in the town square so everyone can see. They continue these executions of people and have continue to do so for over a decade and a half now. And so I think what the president is expressing is the desire that he wishes the Iranian people had an ability to fight back against some of these things that are happening to them. And I would view that as distinct and separate from the specifics of this operation that was ongoing before it concluded, and certainly different from the operation that's going on now.
About Iran and its control of the Strait of Hormuz, number 53.
But the goal here is pretty simple. Establish a zone of transit that is protected by a bubble, the United States, both naval and air assets. And then allow ships who want to move through there and get to market, to begin to increase confidence in the ability to do so. That doesn't happen in 12 hours. It takes time to set up that bubble and gain that confidence, but that's the goal. We have been in touch. We've been in touch, with a bunch of different liners about moving, and we're hoping to continue to improve the security situation, and we'll start to see some of that movement. And we'll announce it as it happens after the fact. We're not going to be like broadcasting, hey, tomorrow at 12, ship X is going to be coming through for obvious reasons, because that degrades the security. But we feel confident we're going to be able to achieve that. Look, it's not going to solve the whole Straits problem. It's going to solve a lot of it, but it's important to challenge what Iran is doing now. Guys, again, if you take anything away today, and I can't tell you what to write, but Iran cannot be allowed to normalize this control of the Straits. It's completely unlawful, illegal. It's outrageous. And every country in the world should be joining us and condemning it and doing something about it. But the United States has stepped up and is trying to do something.
He talked about a conventional shield, number 54.
Yeah, but look, here's the way to think about Iran. And this is what I described at the very beginning of this. What was Iran's plan? You have to understand what their plan was. Their plan was they were going to build this conventional shield where they would have so many thousands of missiles and drones and rockets that they couldn't be attacked. And behind that conventional shield that they were trying to build, they would then break out and do whatever they wanted with their nuclear program. They no longer have that conventional shield. Okay, we told you guys from the very beginning, and we're very consistent in this messaging. The operation that has concluded was going to destroy their Navy. They have no Navy left. They don't. Not a Navy. They have small boats and Boston whalers, but they don't have a Navy left. They don't have an Air Force. I challenge you. When is the last time you read or heard about an Iranian jet flying anywhere? They don't have an Air Force. Their missile launching capability has been substantially degraded, and their industrial base, their defense industrial base, has been severely, severely damaged. So their ability to build a shield behind which they could hide their nuclear program was wiped out. That's a very substantial achievement.
More on this when we return. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I'm Larry Elder.
Good times never felt so good. Sail on, honey.
That's a very substantial achievement, and that was the purpose of this operation from day one.
Their nuclear material in order for this war to end.
Well, that's one of the topics that needs to be discussed. I don't know about. I think you're linking it. The operation is over. Epic Fury, as the President notified Congress, we're done with that stage of it. Okay, we're now on to this project of freedom. As far as a negotiation is concerned, I think the President's been clear that part of the negotiation process has to be not just the enrichment, but what happens to this material that's buried deep somewhere that they still have access to if they ever wanted to dig it out. That has to be addressed, and that's being addressed in the negotiation. I'm not going to go further on what progress has been made on that topic because I don't want to endanger the negotiations, but suffice it to say that the President and this entire team is aware of the centrality of that question, and that will have to be addressed one way or the other.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder, Salem News Channel. Before I get back to a statement made by the Secretary of State, I have a question for you. Let's assume that President Barack Obama, negotiating with the Iranians, trying to do the Iran deal, instead of concluding a deal where eventually Iran gets a nuke because the deal had all sorts of what are called sunset provisions, meaning at some point Iran could go back to enriching uranium, even under that deal that supposedly was a deal that constrained Iran. It really didn't. Plus they were cheating. But suppose President Obama said, we tried everything. We negotiated with these people. We ignored their work on their missile program. We ignored their support for proxies. We just focused on their enriching uranium to, in our opinion, achieve nuclear capability of having a bomb. And my patience has run out. So now we're going to destroy their ability to build a nuclear bomb. And suppose Obama laid out the same case Trump did. We're going to prevent them from getting a nuclear bomb ever. And as a result, we're going to take military action. Do you think that the world would have the same attitude that they have right now? Do you think that our NATO allies would refuse to get involved if President Obama was the one who authorized a military strike on Iran? Give me the same rationale. My point is a lot of this is just abject hatred of this president. And the feeling that the populations of the various NATO countries hate him too. So if I, as a leader, went along with President Trump, I could lose power. I could lose my office. Was Iran not close to getting a nuclear bomb? 60 Minutes just said it. If they did, would they likely use it? Well, we found out they have the ability to strike European capitals with their missile program that even our intelligence agencies did not apparently know. We see what they've done to their own people. An estimated 30,000, 40,000 people gunned down, unarmed, by the Iranian government. Right now, they're surrounding women and children in front of proposed bombing sites. Isn't that something? Isn't there a term for that? Oh yeah, I thought of it. It's called war crime. And I've talked to you before about what they did during the Iranian-Iraq war, where they gave boys as young as 12 years old plastic keys that would unlock paradise. All they have to do is walk on foot over minefields to clear the mines for the troops and for the tanks. Hundreds of thousands of Iranian young men as young as 12 years old were involved in this effort, and an estimated tens of thousands of them were blown up. A regime that does that, in possession of a nuclear bomb, would likely do what with it? That is what the civilized world should be asking themselves. Yeah, I don't like Donald Trump's personality. I don't like his bombast. I don't like the way he ridicules other countries. I don't like the way he belittles other leaders. But did Iran or did Iran not have an intent to acquire a nuclear bomb? Were they or were they not on the course of obtaining one? And if the answer to those questions are yes and yes, the real question should be, what took the civilized world so long to do something about it? Why did so many other leaders kick the can down the road until this one stepped on the can? That's a question that people ought to be asking. And I don't hear people asking that. Iran is mining the Strait of Hormuz, reportedly considering using dolphins to blow up ships. Who does this? Now I've got a question. Parents and grandparents, turn on any streaming platform, open any textbook, scroll any feed. Our kids absorb it every single day. You're a biological accident. The universe is pointless. That's the worldview being handed to them without their permission. But the new powerful documentary, The Story of Everything, explains a deeper truth written in the stars and the very code of our DNA. It's called intelligent design, something the cultural gatekeepers don't want to talk about, that we were created with a purpose by a creator. The Story of Everything does what no major studio would ever do. It equips you with the scientific evidence to defend your faith and challenge that narrative. In theaters right now, but only, but only through May 6th. And be sure to watch my terrific interview with the executive producer, Dr. Stephen Myers, at thestoryofeverything.film/Larry. Get your tickets right now, including a free ticket for students. That's pretty exciting. At thestoryofeverything.film/Larry, thestoryofeverything.film/Larry. 888-971-SAGE. Do not leave town. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are Salem News Channel coming to you from the Relief Factor studio. Don't forget your Relief Factor, 800-4RELIEF, 800-4RELIEF, or ReliefFactor.com. That's ReliefFactor.com. Super Raside in Detroit. Super, nice to hear from you.
Hey, what's up, Bob? Hey, what's up, Larry?
How are you?
Not too bad. Everything is great. I wanted to talk a little bit of politics with you right quick. Actually, I wanted to talk some Showtime with you, too, as well, as far as Kaepernick, R. Kelly, and P. Diddy. But let me get to...
Super, you're really quite faint. Can you speak louder?
Okay.
Yeah, that's much better.
Go now. As I was saying, I wanted to talk some politics with you, but first I wanted to talk a little bit of Showtime, too, as well, which is R. Kelly, P. Diddy, and Kaepernick right quick. But first, let me get to diversity, the Republican Party, and all this so-called diversity. And is it just me? Is it just me, or is it like 97% of all talk radio, from politics to sports, is white men?
Raside,
that they have.
Your Detroit Pistons are in the playoffs, aren't you?
They're not my Pistons. I don't.
Okay. Well, is it me, or is it the case that most of the players on the Pistons are black? Is that just me?
What does that have to do?
Is that just me?
That's like, wait. Is that like 12? Only 12 players? But according to all the radio stations, or all the all the radio stations around,
Detroit Pistons should choose players based upon
the nation.
Detroit Pistons should choose players based upon their race, not based upon their skill or their talent. Is that what you're saying?
That has nothing to do with radio stations, and because you have thousands of radio stations.
Okay, what white person on the radio station should not have his or her job? They
should implement or include.
No. What person do you think shouldn't be there? What person do you think shouldn't be there?
There's so much diversity within the Republican Party. Why is all of
why don't you answer my question?
White men.
Why don't you answer my question? Programmers program based upon who they think can generate an audience. Should they program based upon race, based upon gender, based upon sexual orientation?
Your people are supposed to be your party.
What do you mean, my people?
So fair.
I'm about a colorblind society, Rashidi. Why aren't you?
No, I'm talking about your Republican Party.
What difference does it make the race? What difference does it make the race of the talk show host? What matters is what he or she's talking about, isn't it?
It's not about the host. It's about the host, the co-host, his friends, and every other analyst that they bring.
Super
in.
Rashidi, let's assume every host, every co-host was black, but they were conservative. Would you be happy then? Of course not. Because you care about what they're talking about. You don't agree with what they're talking about. What difference does it make?
I'm talking about inclusion, more inclusion.
More inclusion. So you'd be happier if there were conservatives who were black as opposed to white people who were black. Then you'd be happy.
And I'm talking about sports radio stations too. If you ever dial into sports radio stations all across the nation, like 97% of them are white men. But that's why there is a need.
So you won't answer the question about the Detroit Pistons because you're embarrassed.
No, I'm not. Go ahead.
Well, then why don't you answer my question? I've noticed that most of the players on the Detroit Pistons are black. Now, is that a problem?
Well, I noticed most of the ownership and executives are white. So I guess they even that out. Okay, so most of your
because most of the owners are white, therefore it's okay for the players to be black because it evens it out. Does that make any sense?
It has to make sense because you put that question to me, and I
don't think you've answered it very well. I don't think you've answered it very well. Michael Jordan owns a team. Michael Jordan owns a team. Have you seen the lack of racial diversity in his team, in his lineup?
One black guy. Okay, so. Total, it's only like five. It's only like 5 black owners. There are no black owners in the NFL. Let's not get started on the NFL. You got 70% of your players are black, and none of your owners, and the majority of all your people that sit up in the press box or the executive box are white people. So what I'm saying is, this country has a lot of work to do with more diversity. Now, here's the key thing.
So this country should have more black billionaires who own teams. And that's your complaint.
That's not my only complaint, but it's part of it. But let's go
it's interesting, Super, where your priorities are. You're whining about the lack of black owners, but you don't seem to be concerned about the.
I'm pointing it out.
You don't seem to be concerned about the fact that 70% of black kids enter the world without a father in the home, married to the mother. That, to me, is a far bigger concern you should have than the lack of diversity among owners. But you don't say anything about that. You're in Detroit.
No.
You're in Detroit. Your school system, K through 12, is lousy, absolutely lousy. And most of these kids are black kids getting a lousy education. Where are you on this? But you call up and you whine about the lack of owners of teams who are black. This is where your priorities are.
It's not.
It's pretty pathetic, Super. It really is.
No.
This is your world, looking around for inequality and black owners of teams, but you don't give a rip about the K through 12 rip-off kids in Detroit are getting. You don't care at all about the large number of black kids into the world without a father in the home, which leads to dropouts and poverty.
Just because I didn't, can you hear me?
Have you ever called me and asked about that? I talk about this a lot. Have you ever called up and said anything at all about that? Never. But you whine about nonsense.
I care about, no, it's not nonsense, because it's billions of dollars in all of this. So don't get it twisted. You know it.
Don't get it twisted. Don't get what twisted. I'm talking about your priorities, Rusty Day.
No, my priorities are never twisted, because I'm all about the African-American neighborhood doing better in all.
Well, then if you're all about the African-American neighborhood doing better, the number one concern should be the failure of a large number of black kids to enter the world without a father in the home, married to the mother. That should be your number one concern, far and away.
No, it's not.
I know it's not.
You know it's not my concern.
I know it's not.
You don't know that just because I'm
okay. Humor me, Rashidi. Is that your number one concern?
Okay. It's among my concerns. Now let me get to telling
I didn't think so. I think we've jumped the shark, my friend. Thank you for calling. Oh my goodness. I've noticed the majority of the people on radio are white men. And I ask him real simple, what might white man, in his opinion, should be fired in favor of somebody who's, I guess, not white. No answer. Detroit Pistons. Majority of the players are black. Is that a problem? Should the owners choose people based upon racial diversity? Now, declare your independence from pain. For over 250 years, Americans have believed in one powerful idea, that we were meant to live free. Free to work hard, free to move, free to enjoy life without being held back. But if everyday aches and pains are slowing you down, it might be time to declare your independence from pain. I've told you about my golfing buddy, Tom, out almost every day golfing, says he wouldn't be able to do that because of shoulder pain and lower back pain if it weren't for Relief Factor. Relief Factor is a 100% drug-free, research-based formula designed to help your body fight inflammation, one of the root causes of pain. It's not a quick fix or a temporary mask. It works from the inside out, at the source. Relief Factor was created so people could get back to living life on their terms, walking, working, exercising, and enjoying the moments that really matter. Try Relief Factor today for just $19.95. Your 3-week quick start is ready for you. ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com, or call 800-4-RELIEF, 800-4-RELIEF. Triple 971 SAGE 888-971-7243. I am Larry O here at the Salem News Channel. We're going to talk to a member of an organization that was condemned by the Southern Poverty Law Center, now accused of giving money to the very hate groups the Southern Poverty Law Center supposedly condemns. We're also going to talk to a California state lawmaker about the cost of the California bullet train that apparently Gavin Newsom still supports. Also, Seattle's socialist mayor says if millionaires leave her state because of the new wealth tax, well, goodbye. And the Trump administration is still being compared to Nazi Germany despite the third assassination attempt. And President Trump weighs in on the Bill Maher-Gavin Newsom interview. All of this and more, 888-971-SAGE. Michael is in Santa Cruz, California. Michael, you're on the Larry Oda Show.
Yeah, it seems like what's happening in Iran right now is it's really just evolved to Trump trying to save face and see if he can pull out a deal on the nuclear issue that's better than the one that he tore up.
You know, you say that he tore it up. One more time. It wasn't torn up. We withdrew from it. Iran was still in the deal. Most of the European countries were still in the deal, and Iran stayed in the deal for several more years. So why do you keep saying he tore it up? He withdrew from it. Nothing stopped Iran from abiding by all the stipulations in the deal if they wanted to. They chose not to. They continued enriching uranium, and then people said, well, Donald Trump tore up the deal. He didn't tear up the deal. We withdrew from the deal. The deal was still in place.
Then why attack them?
Because they are developing a nuclear weapon, and according to 60 Minutes, they were very close to getting it, and everybody else kicked the can down the road. Donald Trump stomped on the can. That's why. But the idea that Donald Trump tore up the deal, didn't tear up anything. He withdrew from the deal. The deal was still in place.
Then why not invade, take over, depose the government, and impose your will, and make sure that there's no chance that they ever get close to having a bomb?
So now you're upset so now you're upset that Trump tore up the deal, as you put it, but you're also upset that he hasn't put boots on the ground and invaded the country. So which one do you want?
I'm upset at the massive hypocrisy of what's taking place.
How has he been hypocritical? How's he been hypocritical, Michael?
You win a war one way. You invade and you impose your will completely. You do not bomb. We didn't bomb the Japanese and then ask them what they wanted. We didn't bomb the Germans and then try to make a deal with them. We decided that if Iran is the malign actor that you and Trump claim it is, there's only one solution. You invade them, you take over completely, you depose everything about them, and you make it your way. There's no other way to achieve any goal that's worth doing.
If Donald Trump announced we're going to invade Iran, occupy Iran until there's a new government, you'd say right on, you'd say yes, you'd high five that, and you wouldn't.
Absolutely.
You would. So your argument is he's not gone far enough.
You either go all the way.
So your argument is he's not gone far enough. That's a yes, correct? You're upset that he hasn't gone far enough.
Either.
I'm confused, Michael. I think you are too. Thanks for calling, though, Larry Elder.
I'll be lucky. I can break these chains.
So let's get her teed up.
You want to play rough? Say hello to my little friend. What the hell's going on out here?
That's a bingo.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are Salem News Channel. The Secretary of State was asked during this press conference what his hope for America is at a time like this. Number 55.
I got to ask you, what is your hope for America at a time such as this?
My hope for America?
And how do you personally deal with that?
Yeah, look, I mean, my hope for America is what it's always been. I think it's the hope I hope we all share. We want it to continue to be the place where anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, where you're not limited by the circumstances of your birth, by the color of your skin, by your ethnicity, but frankly, it's a place where you are able to overcome challenges and achieve your full potential. I think that should be the goal of every country in the world, frankly, but I think in the U.S. we're not perfect. Our history is not one of perfection, but it's still better than anybody else's history, and ours is a story of perpetual improvement. Each generation has left the next generation of Americans freer, more prosperous, safer, and that is our goal as well. But it is a unique and exceptional country, and as we come upon this 250-year anniversary, I think we have a lot to learn and be proud of in our history. It is one of perpetual and continuous improvement, where each generation has done its part to bring us closer to fulfilling the vision that the founders of this country had upon its founding. So,
what a beautiful answer. My goodness. Now, the United Kingdom ambassador to America says his country is stepping up in this effort against Iran. And the U.S. ambassador to NATO, Matthew Whitaker, says the United States is looking for strong, capable allies. Number 45.
Yeah, and I know that Secretary of State Marco Rubio is headed to Italy later this week to meet with the Pope and Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. The last time I spoke with President Trump, he said, we don't have the same relationship that we did have with Giorgia Meloni in Italy, and we don't have the same relationship that we did have in Spain. Yesterday, however, I did speak with the British ambassador to the United States, Sir Christian Turner, who made the point that, you know what, the UK may have had disagreements initially, but where they landed is in a good place. Watch this. What do you think about the relations across the board between the U.S., the UK, and other NATO allies?
I think the point His Majesty was making is that ours is a relationship of reconciliation, of renewal, and today we have to focus on our hard interests. Britain is the largest investor in 21 states in the U.S. These military ties, they're important. Britain has been allowing its bases to be used by American aircraft every night, flying out of Fairford in East Anglia. We have been flying our jets in the Middle East as part of this campaign to defend our allies. Over 2,000 sorties by British jets. That's the largest number in 15 years. For NATO, Maria, I think, look, we must remember this is a defensive alliance. The only time Article 5 has been invoked was after 9/11. So we think this alliance as well is enduring and that it matters. And President Trump deserves the credit. You know, he is the one who's been calling on European countries, mine included, to up its defense spending. And I'm pleased to say that's exactly what we're doing.
And you know, Ambassador, this comes after a very friendly week for the UK and the US when His Majesty, the King, Charles III, visited with President Trump.
Yeah, I watched your interview with the ambassador, and I thought you did a great job eliciting some, really tough questions. And that's the right tone. If you think about the tone coming out of Europe right now, Maria, that's the tone that our allies need to strike, a realist view of where we are. First of all, that nuclear ambitious Iran, not acceptable, that they stand ready, willing, and able to provide access, basing, and overflight. It's that value proposition that I mentioned at the beginning of this that we're we're looking for our allies to step up. They need to become more capable, which is the whole NATO 3.0 project we're on right now that started with the 5% commitment at The Hague. But ultimately it is having frigates and submarines and airplanes and F-35s and all the capabilities that are necessary to deter and defend not only the alliance but our interests. And the United States is looking for strong, capable allies. The UK, again, it's a work in progress. So many of our other allies are work in progress, but there are some that are moving out, and you know, they deserve some credit.
And the Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent, talked about Iran not having control of the Strait, number 44.
So let's level set here. I think the Iranians are starting to believe their own propaganda. And just to be clear, the leadership is hunkered down in bunkers all over the country. And you know, I don't think they know what's going on. But what is going on is that they're reduced. Their navy is not a navy anymore. It's a band of pirates. They are trying to cut off international freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz, and the U.S. is opening that up. This is a humanitarian effort. I can tell you, 2 weeks ago was IMF World Bank Week in Washington, and I had numerous countries come up to me, some of the poorest, some of the most vulnerable, and ask us to do this because it's not only energy that's in there, it's fertilizer, it's food transport, it's LPG for the more than the billion plus people in India use to cook. So we are saying the Iranians do not have control of the Strait. We have absolute control of the Strait. We have blockaded the ships going into or out of Iranian ports. Their economy is in free fall, and everyone says they have the high tolerance for pain. Well, their soldiers will not have a high tolerance for not getting paid.
I have yet to hear a sensible response to the following question. If Iran had a nuclear bomb, would they use it? This is Lindsey Graham, number 28.
It is moral clarity. If you believe the Ayatollah and his henchmen would use a nuclear weapon as part of their religious doctrine, you would be right. If you thought otherwise, you would miscalculate like we did with Hitler. Israel cannot get this wrong. One Holocaust is enough. We know, you know, and I know, if Iran had a nuclear weapon, they would use it in the name of jihad. So Donald Trump is a historic figure, and I know the left doesn't like hearing that. He's the man that did something about Iran's nuclear ambition while every other president allowed them to go basically unchecked. How do you have 900 pounds of highly enriched uranium at 60%?
The Democrats are claiming that the president is violating the War Powers Resolution, or the War Powers Act. I think the only president that said the War Powers Act was legal was Barack Obama. Every other president, from the time it was enacted, said that it was illegal, a violation of the Constitution. I think Obama said something to the effect of we're abiding by it. I'm not even sure even he said it was legal. President Trump, according to CNN, has written a letter to Congress saying that he didn't have to ask permission because epic fury has ended and the war now is in a different phase. Number 30.
Now, one thing you have to keep in mind here is that he wrote a letter to Congress, essentially saying that he didn't have to ask Congress for any permission because all of the military action had been halted. So that's likely to play a factor into whether or not he is going to continue those strikes, which, of course, will open up a whole new door when it comes to the War Powers Act. They have been really relying on this idea that the ceasefire ended the war, therefore they don't have to get Congress involved.
Now, obviously, because of the war, gas prices have gone up. And the question is, what kind of impact is this going to have on the midterms? I believe that the Iranian strategy is to drag this out in hopes that during the midterms, the Republicans take a bath and that the Democrats take control of the House of Representatives and cause the president all sorts of additional trouble. However, this is the pollster Mark Penn, who was a pollster for the Clintons, number 31.
This is closer than people think it is. People are unhappy with the economy. They're unhappy with the Republicans, but they're also even unhappier with the Democrats. And so you have to say, is this election going to be a referendum on the Republicans, in which case that's bad, or is it going to be a choice? And are the Republicans going to be able to make it a choice? If they do that, when I ask who do you have more confidence in to handle the economy, Trump and the Republicans, or the Democrats in Congress, Trump and the Republicans win that 53-47. So, yes, people are really suffering in terms of the way they perceive the economy, and they're unhappy with the way it's going. But the Democrats haven't stepped up and shown that they will do a better job. And that's why I think this election, although usually the in-party goes out, is still closer than most people think.
Yeah,
Lest you think that the third assassination attempt was going to calm down the rhetoric coming from Democrats, this is a Michigan state senator and Senate candidate named McMorrill. Listen to this, number 21.
Just to follow up on that question, do you personally see parallels between Nazi Germany and what's happening under the Trump administration?
Yeah, I do. It is deeply concerning that we see an authoritarian slide, and as we talked about earlier, dividing people against each other.
Do you see parallels between the Trump administration and Nazi Germany? Yes, I do. We come back, we're going to talk to someone with an organization that was condemned by the Southern Poverty Law Center, accused of funding the very organizations it was designed to condemn. I'm Larry Elder. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are the Salem News Channel. The Southern Poverty Law Center has been indicted for funneling some $3 million to a bunch of white supremacist and extremist groups, like the KKK. They were also involved in that Unite the Right rally that resulted in a woman being killed in Charlottesville. One of the organizations over the years that the Southern Poverty Law Center has condemned is Accuracy in the Media. Our guest served as VP for Development of Project Veritas. He's now president of Accuracy in the Media. Please welcome Mr. Adam Guillette.
Thank you so much for having me.
Adam, it is my pleasure. So your group was singled out as a problematic group by the SPLC, and now they're being indicted for funneling money to the very same hate groups that supposedly they were set up to expose for their hatred. You can't make this up.
You certainly couldn't. You know, remember the good people on both sides hoax?
Yeah.
They were funding bad people on both sides of Charlottesville. $270,000 for the organizer, a neo-Nazi. It's like forest fires being started by firefighters. It's truly outrageous.
You know, Adam, and as you know, when Joe Biden launched his campaign for 2020, his first campaign ad had to do with this both sides nonsense, claiming that Donald Trump was saying that there were good Nazis and bad Nazis, when in fact he was saying there were both sides, good people and bad people on both sides of the argument about whether there should be a Confederate monument in the public square. So, as you were pointing out, SPLC is funding the very chaos that, fast forward, Joe Biden uses to launch his presidency. Again, you cannot make this up.
No, that's exactly right. And they targeted countless mainstream reasonable organizations over the years. You know, they had the same plan every time. They create a list of real, legitimate hate groups. Then they take mainstream groups like the Family Research Council on it and put them on it. And the end results were serious. People lost their banking abilities. They weren't allowed to advertise. They were shadow banned on Facebook. As you remember, a shooter stormed the Family Research Council, shot a security guard, and the reason he did it is they appeared on that exact hate list. Meanwhile, our organization, we combat violent racists on college campuses, so much so that I was swatted 13 times after going after racist anti-Semites at Columbia University, a group that promotes terrorism, promotes violence, took over a building, held a janitor hostage, a group that somehow never ended up on their hate list.
Now, Adam, their argument is, well, we were just funding informants, so they would rat out the people who are bad in those groups. To that defense, you say what?
Well, it's hysterical. You know, they claim they're coordinating with the Department of Justice. Sure, they were. I love the irony of the ridiculous hypocrisy of the media on this, because we do hidden camera investigative journalism. And whenever we are covered by mainstream outlets, they always say, our actions are legal, but we're not sure if they're ethical. Tell me the ethics, mainstream media, who loves the Southern Poverty Law Center. Tell me the ethics of funding neo-Nazis. Do the mental gymnastics on that one for me. You're going to get a gold medal. Because to do these sorts of things year after year, and I, of course, wonder, the mainstream media, they used to do investigative journalism. They used to break stories like this. Even if this fell in their lap, can anyone imagine CNN or NBC News or the New York Times breaking this story? It would never happen.
Dr. Ben Carson was one of the extremists, in quotes, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center. Turning Point USA was also on their hate group list. What did they say about accuracy in the media?
Well, we've been around since 1969. If you're around that long, at some point they're going to attack you once or twice. They attacked one of our leaders. Of course, Ben Carson spoke at our 50th anniversary gala, and you couldn't meet a more kind, peaceful man. Right. So to suggest that these people are full of hate and to put them into these real-world consequences, like literally bank accounts were frozen because of this. The ability to promote your organization, the ability to advertise, all those things ended. And let's remember, it goes further than that. The Southern Poverty Law Center gets content into classrooms in red states. There was a classroom curriculum service called Newsella that was taking SPLC articles along with the 1619 Project, rebranding it under their own label, Newsella, and getting it into red state classrooms, often in defiance of state law. This is a devious, law-breaking, evil organization.
Adam, I remember it was founded by a guy named Morris Dees, was it not? And didn't he get into some trouble regarding sexual inappropriate behavior?
Yeah, and somehow didn't end up on their own hate list. You know, the irony is going to be how many other staffers, you know, the lawsuits they've had in the number of years, the terrible workplace environment that people have alleged. How many SPLC staffers and how many SPLC people on their payroll, like the KKK guy in Charlottesville, should be on their own hate list? It's going to be an interesting annual report for that organization when you can't tell the staff from the hate list. Any organization that ever used this hate list needs to dismiss it and never use it again. Any parent should look at the curriculum in their child's classrooms and see if they're using anything from Learning for Justice, the SPLC classroom content, and make sure it is not in their schools. Anybody who ever took this organization seriously needs to disavow them.
Speaking of taking it seriously, they've raised hundreds of millions of dollars over the years. What has this indictment done to their fundraising?
Well, it's hard to say. You know, I bet for some of the most hardcore donors, it's probably increased it. But to that point, after they spent $270,000 funding a KKK member in Charlottesville, they got a $1 million gift from George Clooney. Their funding went up to $150 million. It's unbelievable that they were literally creating problems in the hopes of solving them and then laughing it all the way to the bank. It's no surprise the indictment includes things like wire fraud, because what they were engaging in is fraud. Telling people that they're going to solve a problem when running a nonprofit organization, when you're actively increasing that problem to supposedly solve it, is outrageous and fraudulent. You know, well-intended people probably supported that organization. I'm sure there were well-intended people who used those hate lists. They were deceived by these people. These folks should never be employed in the nonprofit world again. They should lose their tax status, and no one should ever rely on that hate list again.
Adam, we have about a minute left. I want to give you my take on why they did this, and I want you to respond. The problem, again, air quotes, is that America is no longer your grandfather's country. We don't have the problem with racism that we once had. So these guys need to excavate new sources of racism because they don't have any real-world examples of it. The KKK is bankrupt. Barack Obama got elected, got reelected. The majority of the House Republicans, anyway, are in districts that are majority, non-majority black districts. America doesn't care anymore. That's the problem. These guys have to create some problems so they can fundraise.
We see this consistently in politics. We even see it in Hollywood. You know, Hidden Figures, the movie about the African-American women who worked at NASA, they had to create racism that didn't exist to make their film more interesting. Well, it's one thing to do that narratively in Hollywood. It's another thing to do it in real life, but that's precisely what they were doing.
Adam Guillette, president of Accuracy in the Media. Adam, thank you very much for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. We're going to talk to a California state lawmaker about the California bullet train, now estimated to cost over $231 billion when the original estimate was $33 billion. We're also going to talk about the Seattle socialist mayor who says if millionaires leave her state because of the new wealth tax, well, goodbye. All of this and more, 888-971-SAGE. Do not leave town.
Larry will be right back. Stay tuned.
How about us? Some people can hold it together. All kind of weather. Can we? How about us? How about us, baby?
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. Salem News Channel coming to you from the Relief Factor studio. Don't forget your Relief Factor, 800-4RELIEF, 800-4RELIEF, relieffactor.com. That's relieffactor.com. Grace is in Pasadena. Grace, you're in the Larry Elder Show. Thank you so much for calling.
Oh, hey, thank you so much, Larry. What I want to say is I really believe, I've spoken a little to you before saying, like, I got into the school you got into, like, for, you know, you went to Brown, okay, the sister school, right? And I went to another, like, you know, related, like a nice, intelligent school, right, or whatever. And it drives me crazy. People are not seeing, sort of, that it seems to me, okay, hey, I got into the school I got into and I went through. But it seems to me that intentionally the left of the Democrat Party is not Democrat like my parents were, right? And I grew up in that. But they're also, they're intentionally creating crises, like if you, what the leftists like the Clintons and everything. There's some thing they wrote about create a crisis and exploit it, right?
Never. I think it was Rahm Emanuel said, "Never let a crisis go to waste," and that's what we were talking about just a moment ago with the president of the Accuracy in Media, Southern Poverty Law Center, created crises, funding the very terrorists and hate groups that they supposedly are condemning, so they can fundraise off of it. Why? Because there's a dearth of actual, real hate in this country. Thanks very much for the call. I appreciate it. Brian is in Sacramento. Brian, you're in the Larry Elder Show. Thank you for calling.
Thank you, Larry. If it wasn't for the Marxists in 1979, the Islamic takeover would not have occurred. Then the Islamists turned around and killed 30,000 of the Marxists that helped them. Since then, Iran has been taken over by terrorists, and it's been a globalist project. In 2004, Prince Charles visited the villages of Iran which experienced earthquake. It wasn't an earthquake. They drilled big wells in the ground, and they were doing atomic testing. Iran, and British was behind it, they were training them. Iran has been a globalist project. Friends of our Democrat Marxists. That's why they don't want to relinquish of the money coming in and then of the friendship, because they're in together with causing instability in the Middle East, which they have, sending their proxies and Islamists all over now in Europe, in Texas, and everywhere.
Absolutely, and that is why it's just amazing to me that there aren't more countries that are joining this. You can hate Donald Trump all you want. Is there any doubt that Iran is the number one sponsor of terrorism around the world? The Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza? Is there any doubt? And again, I point to the 60 Minutes program 2 weeks ago. Talked about how close Iran was to getting a nuclear bomb. And yet you have Democrats saying that there was no imminent threat. Are you serious? And Obama, as I said earlier, when he left office, he said, I made a mistake not giving more support to the so-called Green Revolution, people that were taken to the streets in Iran in 2009, 2010, and Obama did nothing and said nothing. He said it was a mistake. President Trump is doing something about it, and he's a fascist, he's a Nazi. It's an illegal war. Again, were they or were they not close to getting a nuke? In this business about Donald Trump, as I said earlier to the caller, well, Donald Trump tore up the deal. No, Donald Trump withdrew the United States from the deal. The deal was still there. The European countries that signed onto it were still involved in it. Iran was still involved in the deal. If Iran truly was not interested in acquiring a nuclear weapon, all they had to do was abide by the terms in that deal. As bad as those terms were, because it still gave Iran a glide path to getting a nuke. There were so-called sunset provisions. After a certain number of years, they could enrich to a level of acquiring a bomb. All it did was kick the can down the road. And they were not abiding by it anyway. They were cheating. And the deal did not even include their ballistic missiles program, did not even include their sponsor of proxies. So it was a ridiculous deal to begin with. But there was nothing stopping Iran from abiding by the terms of that deal. So when I hear this business about Donald Trump tore up the deal, drives me crazy. Where are the fact checkers when we look for them? Now I got a question. Ever been in a bad relationship? You know the kind. It just wears you down. You settle in even though deep down you know this isn't how it's supposed to be. That's what daily aches and pains can feel like. You stop expecting to feel good. You start thinking, well, maybe this is just my life now. But it doesn't have to be. With Relief Factor, you can break up with pain as Anthony did. He writes, quote, I was dealing with debilitating pain and fatigue. I've been taking Relief Factor for about 2 months. And now I'm back to running my business, fishing, gardening, doing all the things that really matter to me, end of quote. I told you about Kirk having difficulty going up and down the stairs in the morning until he followed my advice, began taking Relief Factor. After 1 week, he calls, says this stuff is working. Relief Factor is 100% drug-free, targets the inflammation that causes pain so you can move better, feel better, and actually enjoy life again. Try the 3-week quick start for just $19.95. That works out to less than $1 a day. All you have to do is go to relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com, or 800-4-RELIEF, 800 the number 4 relief.
Everybody wants to live together. Why can't we live together?
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are the Salem News Channel. In case you think the rhetoric has been toned down since the third assassination attempt, think again. Here is yours truly, James Carville, number 33.
She says, James, our friends and I love it when you talk nasty about Trump. Just use all the language you can. But she says, you know what? When I see his face, it reminds me of the backside of my husband's scrotum. Yeah, that's what it is. You look like the backside of back. That's what you are, Trump. No wonder Lindsey Graham's always trying to lick your face. But my point here is these people, and they were coming up to me, didn't matter, black women, white women, elegant women, everything that you can imagine. And almost to a person, they said, you keep calling him nasty names because that's what he deserves. And that's who he is, and that's what he deserves, and we're going to keep calling him. And your new name, dude, is Scrotum Face, because that's what you are, Scrotum Face.
Now, note the level of intelligence there. Did you say anything at all about a policy that Donald Trump has supported? Do you say anything at all about the big, beautiful bill? About the Trump tax cuts being extended? You say anything at all about the securing of the southern border following 4 years of open border? Say anything at all about negotiating release of the hostages in Gaza and the remains? Anything at all about the UK ambassador to the United States agreeing that Donald Trump was right to pressure us into spending 5% of our GDP when Obama and George W. Bush complained that they weren't even spending 2%? You say anything about that? Say anything at all about his support for school choice, where the money follows the child rather than the other way around, something that black and brown urban parents support, but your party opposes? You say anything at all about that? Say anything at all about setting back Iran's nuclear program? Lord knows how many years, if not decades. What is your substantive criticism of this man? It was policies. Before the Iran war start, gas prices 5-year low. Mortgage rates 3-year low. What exactly has this man done that warrants being called the things you just now called him? And what would happen if some Republican strategist said that about Barack Obama. I think Obamacare was some of the worst legislation ever, if not ever, demanding every man, woman, and child buy health care insurance, whether they wanted it, needed it, or could afford it. If not, you're going to pay a fine. Obama said it wasn't a tax. But the Supreme Court agreed that Obamacare was legal because the fine was in fact a tax, when Obama said it wasn't a tax. What if somebody said the things you said about Barack Obama because he said if you like your plan, you can keep your plan? If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor? It wasn't true, and he knew it wasn't true at the time he said it. One organization that you like called it the lie of the year. Suppose some Republican strategist said what you just now said about Barack Obama. Because Barack Obama got elected talking about there's no blue America, there's no red America, there's no black America, there's no white America, and spent 8 years whipping out race card after race card after race card. Majority of Americans, when he came into office, thought race relations would get better. Both blacks and whites said that. When he left 8 years later, blacks and whites thought race relations got worse. Suppose somebody launched an attack against Barack Obama along the lines of what you just now did, because he set back the country in terms of race relations. She supported Black Lives Matter, for crying out loud, an organization that started after the death of Trayvon Martin, when the jury found George Zimmerman not guilty, and the jurors that spoke publicly said race had nothing to do with it. That was the genesis of Black Lives Matter, an organization that was embraced by Barack Obama and by his Attorney General. Suppose some Republican strategist said what you just now said about Barack Obama. He double-crossed the country in terms of his attitude about race. He enacted legislation that did not bend the cost curve down regarding medical expenses, did not save the average family $2,500 a year, which is what he said was going to happen. And don't get me started on his executive orders to infuse DEI in everything, something that his vice president, Joe Biden, then took to another level. Suppose somebody put together a whole bunch of things like that. The denial of the applications of nonprofit conservative organizations by the IRS. Operation Fast and Fury. Ignoring guns going to Mexico because apparently they were trying to figure out what happens when they get there. The then Attorney General Eric Holder was subpoenaed by Congress to talk about Operation Fast and Fury, rejected the subpoena, was the first AG to be found in criminal contempt of Congress. Suppose somebody put together a whole laundry list of these kinds of things and used the kind of language you just did. What would have happened? That person would be condemned for demeaning the first black president of the United States. The person would be called a racist. But I guess if the president is white, you can say all sorts of vulgar things about him, and it's not a problem. As much as you dislike Donald Trump, how do you feel about the way this man just criticized him? No substance, nothing about the economy, nothing about the borders, nothing about foreign policy, nothing about opposing biological men competing against women in sports, nothing about gender-affirming surgery on minors, nothing about appointing conservative justices to look at the Supreme Court and the Constitution as a contract. No, he looks like the backside of my husband's scrotum. Really? Now, every spam call, every scam text, every sketchy email with your name, each one starts the same way. Somebody found you. Your phone number is sitting on data broker sites as we speak. So is your home address, your email, your age, even the names of your family members. All of it searchable and for sale. And scammers don't need to be hackers to get it. They just need Google and 5 minutes. Every scam starts with one thing: your personal info being available to the wrong person. So forget the spam filters and the call blockers. The real fix? Disappear. That's what Incogni does. They contact hundreds of data brokers and legally force them to remove your information. I use Incogni to get my name and info away from these data brokers. They can't spam you if they can't find you. Right now, get 60% off with an exclusive deal at incogni.com/Larry. Go to incogni.com/Larry and take back your privacy. That's incogni.com/Larry, incogni.com/Larry. Triple 8-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are Salem News Channel. We're going to talk to a California state lawmaker about the so-called bullet train, now estimated to cost over $230 billion when the original estimate was $33 billion. All of this and more, 888-971-SAGE. Dave is in Denver. Dave, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Thank you so much for calling.
Hey, Larry. Thanks for giving me a moment. I couldn't get to a phone until now, but Michael before called and guaranteed that the only way to win a war is with boots on the ground and to invade and take over the country. And he used this as an example of, I'm not exactly sure what point he was making with Iran. But I was just thinking to myself, Michael, can you give me the date? And this is what I would be happy to ask him. Can you give me the date that American troops invaded the Japanese homeland? What date was that, Michael? I must have missed that. Yeah. I don't think we landed on Japan.
Dave, how about the date when?
Them out.
How about the date when American troops invaded the Soviet Union? and it collapsed.
Yeah, during the Cold War.
That's right.
Or at any other time. I mean, I'm sorry, Michael, it's nonsense. It's not true. We choked them out economically. We bombed them into submission, okay, and they gave up. I mean, I'm sorry. It's just, you just don't know your history.
And also, we're talking about a country where apparently 90% of the people hate the government.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I have every opportunity to not put boots on the ground.
Absolutely. Well, Dave, thank you very much for the call. I appreciate it. The hostility towards Trump after the third assassination attempt, of course, has not at all let up. This is former GOP Representative Adam Kinzinger talking about how people are going to feel down the road who actually voted for President Trump. Number 34.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of it is like, hey, we told you so, right? But then I also still am heartbroken at the number of people that are told every day by a same news organization that didn't cover the January 6th hearings, by the way, on purpose, that everything's fine, everything's great, Iran is one. And so there's people out there that still don't know. And I think the tough thing for me in the aftermath has not been anything except I feel bad for the people that are being misled down this path. But I guarantee you something, and I know this. In 5 or 10 years, there won't be a single person left in this country that will ever admit to supporting Donald Trump, except for those that have their stuff all over Twitter.
Okay. Because in 5 or 10 years, there won't be a single person left who will admit he ever supported Donald Trump, except for those that have their footprints on social media. Really? This man has been a political figure now for 11 years. I support him now more than ever. And I guarantee you, 5, 10 years down the road, if God willing, I'm still around, I will still be supporting him. They should be chiseling his face on Mount Rushmore. I'm Larry Elder. So let's get her teed up!
You want to play what? Say hello to my little friend! What the hell's going on out here?
Ooh, that's a bingo!
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are Salem News Channel. My guest, President and CEO of Strong America, an advocacy group, and a super PAC. State Assemblyman formerly. Also was a member of the Huntington Beach City Council, was mayor of Huntington Beach. And he is now vice chair of the California Senate Transportation Committee. Please welcome to the program California State Senator Tony Strickland.
Thanks, Larry. You're one of my favorite people in the world. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, Tony, before we get into the high-speed train and other stuff in California, I want to thank you again for being my campaign strategist. When I ran for governor in the recall election, people don't realize how close we came to winning that race. If the Democrats, as you know, Tony, had not talked, say, Antonio Villaraigosa out of being on the replacement ballot, and he had done almost as well as Cruz Bustamante did back in 2003 when he got 30-some% of the vote, we would be in Sacramento as we speak.
We would be, and Larry, you ran an amazing campaign, and people don't realize how well you actually did, and you won, I believe, 57 of 58 counties. And the one county we didn't win, we only lost by like 50 votes or something like that.
That's right.
You were a remarkable candidate, and you're an even better person. This state would be having a turnaround right now had you won that race for governor. But I will tell you, you lost your voice at the end of the campaign, and it always happens for candidates who are working hard and that really push themselves. And I just want to say I'm an admirer of you, Larry. You're making a huge difference. No matter what, God has really put you in a position to really make a difference in California and across the nation. And I'm proud to call you my friend.
Well, Tony, thank you very much for that. Let's play Bill Maher to Gavin Newsom about the bullet train, number 48.
The other side, what they're going to say, though, is, but have you seen the stats from California?
Good.
What? Well,
fourth largest economy. Let's go.
Well, are they going to say good about gas prices? Are they going to say good about how high the rents are?
Yeah.
So many people live. I mean, there's a whole litany. I mean, the train. Gavin,
okay, the train.
You got to get rid of the train.
The train.
I say this as a friend. You got to let that train go. You got to let the train go. It's up to $231 billion.
No, it's not. That's just nonsense. It's not. We're doing a $119 million segment. We got it back on track. It goes back 3 administrations. I inherited a mess. We put it back on track. All the environmental work is behind us. We're actually laying the track. All the legal litigation, all the land issues are all behind us. We're actually making this project work. And so that's a fact. Now, on the issue of California,
well, it's been a long...
So, Tony, how much of that, if any, that the governor said is true?
It's fantasy land. The nonpartisan LAO said this plan is not realistic, and that's a nonpartisan person coming forward. We had a hearing last Monday, an informational hearing on this, and even some of the Democrats who've been so supportive of the high-speed rail over the last 10 years have said it was a disaster. This is a mitigated disaster. The $231 billion doesn't even account for any money being borrowed. And as you know, Larry, when you borrow money, you have to actually pay more money back than when you take it. Let's remember, this was a $33 billion project that turned into a $231 billion and growing. And then now they've changed the project. They went from 2 tracks to 1. So now they have to share their track with rail as well as Metrolink. It's not high speed. And then there's a lot of provisions within what they're asking the legislature to do that I just know won't happen. For example, they want the authority to take over all the electric lines over the investor-owned utilities. That would never happen. And then they want to take the local, what we call TIF, the local taxes where you fund counties and cities. They want to take the county and city money and put in the high-speed rail. But we already got overwhelming opposition from cities and counties. So this plan is just not realistic. My dad always taught me, when you dig a hole for yourself, the best way to get out of that hole is to stop digging. It's time to pull the plug on this crazy train.
Tony, didn't Gavin Newsom at one point say he opposed it?
The first State of the State address, he actually came out and opposed it. But for whatever reason, he has dug in, and he's dug in on a project that everybody here in Sacramento, Democrats and Republicans, know will never be built as proposed to the people of California. You know, and we continue to waste billions of dollars that we don't have. We have cash flow issues. No one in the private sector in their right mind would come and invest in a project that was supposed to be $33 billion, and now it's $231 billion. And they haven't even laid down a track yet. They haven't even started. And so, again, one of the main reasons why we have high gas prices in California is we have this cap and trade where $1 billion comes out of it through our high gas prices and taxes into this bullet train. my two arguments are the best way to do it, but when you pull the plug here, we could lower gas prices by $1.08 a gallon, save an average family $1,100 per family. And there's shovel-ready projects throughout the state of California that would be better for the people of California than this one project. Let me tell your listeners, this one project is almost equivalent of the whole entire state budget. And we don't have the resources. So I don't know what Gavin Newsom is even talking about. That's fantasy land.
How are you feeling about the governor's race, Tony?
Look, you can't win the lottery unless you ticket. 2/3 of Californians say we're on the wrong track. I'm hoping that the Californians realize they've now had one-party rule, supermajority rule, and the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I would have thought when you ran for governor that they would have gone on board with you. Sometimes you have to be so bad. You saw what Nick Shirley uncovered in terms of the billions of dollars in fraud. That's hardworking taxpayers' money, hardworking California families' money that we're taking and just wasting it through fraud. And what was the response from the legislature and the governor? Is to introduce a bill to make it illegal to do independent journalism and actually say that you're going to go to, you're going to get fined and maybe incarcerated for uncovering fraud. They should be thanking Nick Shirley, thanking him. The controller specifically should be thanking him for uncovering this fraud within our California system.
Tony, the dream that a lot of us have is that Chad Bianco and Steve Hilton would be finishing number 1 and number 2. Is that at all likely?
I don't know if it's likely, Larry, but even Paul Mitchell, who's the numbers guy on the Democratic side, says roughly the 27% chance. Look, I know this for a fact. The minute that happens, if it happens, the next day the legislature will introduce a constitutional amendment to get rid of this stupid jungle primary, which would be a positive. But you know what? Again, 2/3 of Californians say we're on the wrong track. I just hope that they realize 1 + 1 = 2 and start picking someone different. I happen to be supporting Steve Hilton because I think he's more prepared to actually be governor day one if he gets elected. But I think Chad Bianco has a lot to offer. Clearly, those two candidates are far better than any of the candidates. When the candidates were asked, giving them grades, and they're giving Newsom B's and A's on homelessness and the budget and everything else, that just tells you that they're going to keep going down this path where, again, 2/3 of Californians think we're on the wrong track.
Who do you think the Democrats want to finish either number 1 or number 2? Steyer, Becerra? Who do you think they want to finish number 1 or number 2?
The reason why they have a problem right now, Larry, is they're all split up pretty evenly within different factions within their party. The far left obviously likes Katie Porter as well as Steyer, and the far left likes Steyer. They're beating each other up, and now that Javier Becerra is starting to gain some ground, you're seeing some negative ads come from Steyer at Javier Becerra. I think they all have a little baggage all amongst them, and they're really splitting their vote pretty evenly. And that's why you're seeing a slim chance that you can have 2 Republicans head off into the November election.
Let's assume Steve Hilton finishes number 1 or number 2 versus Steyer or Becerra or Katie Porter. If that were to happen, what would happen in the general, Tony?
Well, I think it's an uphill battle anytime that you're a Republican running statewide. But I think Hilton has a good, strong message in terms of fraud. He's staying close to issues in terms of the affordability crisis. And I think Steyer Hilton would be probably the ideal because, a lot of times the business interests up here in Sacramento, they fund the Democrats just because it's overwhelming odds against Republicans winning. But I do believe that if Steyer was the nominee, you're going to see a lot of the business interests go all in on Steve Hilton just because they can't afford 4 years of Steyer. This is the first time in California history more people are leaving the state than coming in since the gold rush, and it would be on steroids. If you thought Gavin Newsom was bad, it would be Gavin Newsom on steroids if Steyer were to be the nominee.
Last thing, Tony, 30 seconds. Trump has endorsed Steve Hilton, as you have. Trump is pretty toxic in California. Did the endorsement help, hurt, or was it kind of a neutral factor?
Well, I think it guaranteed that we'll have at least a Republican in the runoff. Here's another thing is like we always have to worry as a candidate who's up in 2026, and we want to grow our numbers and bring about balance in the state Senate and the state Assembly. I think the president weighing in actually guarantees a ticket for Steve Hilton to at least be in that top two. The worst thing that can happen to Republicans around California is if there was two Democrats at the top of the ticket after June. So no matter what, I think Steve Hilton's punched his ticket, but I still think Chad Bianco has a shot to punch his. I just want the Democrats to keep each other up.
State Senator Tony Strickland. My love to Carla. Thanks, Tony.
You're the best, Larry. Love you.
You got it.
And she says, James, our friends and I love it when you talk nasty about Trump. Just use all the language you can. But she says, you know what? When I see his face, it reminds me of the backside of my husband's scrotum. Yeah, that's what it is. You look like the backside of that's what you are, Trump. No wonder Lindsey Graham's always trying to lick your face. But my point here is these people, and they were coming up to me, didn't matter, black women, white women, elegant women, everything that you can imagine. And almost to a person, they said, you keep calling him nasty names because that's what he deserves. And that's who he is, and that's what he deserves, and we're going to keep calling him. And your new name, dude, is Scrotum Face, because that's what you are, Scrotum Face.
Love the love songs. Did the man go to IKEA and say, I want the Dr. Evil chair? 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. Poor James Carver. What's he going to say when Donald Trump decides to run again? Here's number 25.
We have very friendly competition, but it'll be a very important trip. We provided 100% expensing and bonus depreciation, which is tremendous. One of the biggest things that you have. I mean, it's people have no idea how big that is. The businesses do, so that businesses can deduct 100% of the cost of new facilities, equipment, and capital investment in the first year. It used to take 38 years of deduction. Now you get it done in one. You can take one, so you can expand. I think that's what made us so successful in the first term, but now we have it for a 10-year period, so you have it for a while. I really was going to make it for a one-year period. That would mean you spend all your money immediately. Now, unfortunately, I gave you too much time. I was sort of against that. I said, let's do it for a shorter period of time, but we did it. It's the right thing. And this way, when I get out of office in, let's say, 8 or 9 years from now, I'll be able to use it. I'll be able to use it myself. And to ensure that you and your family can keep your businesses in the family, we virtually eliminated the unfair estate tax or death tax.
Oh, my goodness,
for
the man is
farmers
not going to leave office. He's going to stay for another 8 or 9 or 10 years. This is a Tennessee state rep giving his take on Donald Trump and what Donald Trump is doing to our country. Number 36.
Donald Trump is a white supremacist domestic terrorist who is seeking to destroy our democracy by any means necessary, including by usurping democracy itself and the voices of the people. And Governor Bill Lee, Cameron Sexton, and Lieutenant Governor McNally have all decided to join him in this effort to destroy our democracy, to take away our voice, and to attack black people and black representation. And that's wrong.
Aside from that, he's trying to take away our representation. Jim Crow 2.0. And I guess you're supposed to forget it was Democrats pushing Jim Crow. Keith Ellison, at the time, was a member of Congress. This is during the 2016 election. They're at the convention. He's on a panel led by George Clintonopoulos. And unfortunately for him, there was a Republican on that panel named Tom Cole. Keith Ellison said that Donald Trump is the worst Republican nominee since George Wallace. George Wallace was a Republican, number 10.
Keith Ellison, you're a supporter of Bernie Sanders. What should happen?
Well, I'm with Bernie on this. I mean, we're focused on getting rid of Donald Trump, making sure he is not the president of the United States. I agree with Bernie. I'm disappointed to read about it. But at the same time, you know, we do have the worst Republican nominee since George Wallace, we have somebody who is so dangerous in a number of ways, not the least of which is his attacks on the press and his pulling press credentials. The First Amendment says freedom of the press. He attacks the press regularly. So I'm really kind of focused on the job at hand, but I am disappointed, but I'm not surprised. But at the same time, you know, I just have to keep trudging on, organizing people to turn out the maximum number of votes to defeat
Just
Donald
the
Trump.
beginning here in Philadelphia, Congressman Cole. You just came from Cleveland Republican Convention. Was it a success?
Well, first I want to correct my friend. George Wallace was a proud Democrat and ran for the Democratic nomination. Was on that stage down there.
Thank God he got rejected and lost.
Well, that's fine, but let's be clear on the record as to whose party he belonged to.
And regarding this president has attacked the press. Barack Obama used the Espionage Act to go after more members of the media than all the previous presidents combined. And this business about Jim Crow 2.0, once again, let's remember who the Jim Crow people were. They were Democrats, as was Bull Connor, the public superintendent of public safety. Number 11.
You can never whip these boys if you don't keep you and them separate. I found that out in Birmingham. You've got to keep the white and the black separate.
Proud Democrat. And when I point this kind of stuff out, people say, well, there was a big switch. All of a sudden, the racists in the Democratic Party became racist in the Republican Party. And Dinesh D'Souza, during a Q&A session, dealt with this big lie. Number 12.
Aren't you insulting all the intelligent people here and the 80% of African Americans who are Democrats by claiming that the current Democratic Party has anything to do with that Dixiecrat party from 50 years ago that was trying to stop them from voting? Aren't you conflating the word Democrat with progressive? They have utterly nothing to do with each other. The current Democratic Party has absolutely none of those values from 50 years ago, and you're pretending that they are guilty of something. Aren't you trying to claim that Jesse Jackson is a dupe and shouldn't be supporting the Democratic Party because Abraham Lincoln was a Republican and freed the slaves?
Let me try to tackle that very frontally. First of all, probably the biggest thing going for the big switch that I mentioned earlier are two facts, both of which are very powerful. The first is that whites in the South, who used to be Democrats, do now predominantly vote Republican. Yep. Right? Fact number two is that blacks who used to vote Republican now vote overwhelmingly Democratic. And operating on the assumption, which I think is reasonable, that people understand where their own interests lie, it would certainly be right that blacks currently see their identification and their interest in the Democratic Party. Now,
we're going to pick that up in just a second. Don't go away. Did racist Democrats in the South become racist Republicans in the South? Was there a big switch? 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I'm Larry Elder. Do not leave town.
Saying I love you.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are Salem News Channel. So kids in school are taught, well, it is true that the Democrats were the party of Jim Crow, the party of the Confederacy, the party of slavery, that Democrats founded the KKK, Democrats are the party of Dred Scott, Democrats are the party of the Southern Manifesto that says, I don't care about Brown versus Board of Education, we're not going to integrate schools. But there was this big switch. And suddenly all these racist Democrats became racist Republicans in the South. And Dinesh D'Souza is dealing with this lie. Continue.
Right that blacks currently see their identification and their interest in the Democratic Party. Now, here is the here are two interesting questions to ask. Number one, when did blacks switch from being Republicans to being Democrats? The Democratic Party was the party of the Dixiecrats all the way through the 60s. And if what you say is true, that the blacks made a switch to their racial friends, it would appear that the black switch would have to come in the 70s and 80s, when blacks see these racists are now moving over there, so it makes sense for us to move over here. But in reality, blacks moved overwhelmingly to the Democratic Party in the 1930s. The black vote went from about 15% Democratic to about 70% Democratic within 4 years.
The places they could vote.
That's right. But
which
here,
was the North.
Also in the
Jackie Robinson was a Republican for darn good reason.
That's absolutely right. But here's what I'm getting at.
Wouldn't be today.
Well, we can debate Jackie Robinson because it's always difficult to know what dead people would say. If Martin Luther King were alive today, Martin Luther King isn't alive today. Okay, but here's the point I'm getting at. The reason that blacks switched from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party had everything to do with the benefits of the New Deal and nothing to do with racism. In fact, yes, and in the South, too, blacks switched to the Democratic Party. It's not that blacks couldn't vote in the South. It's that there were all kinds of barriers to black voting. Under FDR, there was blacks couldn't vote in the South at all. No blacks voted in the South.
Very, very few.
How many? How many?
I don't know.
Okay. I thought so. Look, there were all kinds of poll taxes and barriers imposed by the Democrats on the black vote until the Democrats realized that they could get the black vote by offering jobs, welfare, retirement programs. Are you telling me that FDR in the South was telling blacks who were voting for the Democrats, you can't vote? Not true. Not true. Blacks in the North and the South switched to the Democratic Party because of New Deal benefits. Many of them were very sad about doing it because they were leaving the party of emancipation and Lincoln and flinging themselves into the party of the Ku Klux Klan and the Dixiecrats who were in the South and were in the Democratic Party. Exactly. So what I'm saying is it was a Faustian bargain in which you get economic benefits and at the same time you're in bed with the racists and you're on your own team. And I'm saying that's American history. Now, whites began to switch to the Republican Party, but much later. Whites began to switch to the Republican Party in droves in the 70s and 80s. Now, here's the point. If you look at racial opinion in the South, and there's a voluminous body of data on this, as racism in the South dramatically declines, the Southern identification with the Republican Party begins to increase. There's an opposite track. Racism is declining in the South, and whites begin to move to the Republican Party. In fact, two scholars who've written a book about this trace that the least racist Southerners all became Republicans. That the poor white racist Democrat never became a Republican. He was a dug-in Democrat to the end of his days. So the Democratic Party remained the party of racism. And as the South became less agrarian, more prosperous, industry came to the South, the post-industrial society, the Republican appeal of equal opportunity, free markets, prosperity, appealed to Southerners. And that's why so what I'm getting at is that the progressives have sold the South on a guilt trip. Even this whole thing about, the Civil War was really about slavery and the South did slavery. Wait a minute. Again, the Northern Democrats protected slavery. The Civil War, the fight over slavery was between the Democratic Party, North and South, that protected it, and the Republican Party, which only was in the North, that opposed it. That's what that fight was about. It wasn't just the North-South thing is now a disguise to hide the responsibility of a major political party that was the party of slavery for 100 years. True or false?
And when you look at the Republicans and Democrats regarding the Civil Rights Bill, I'll talk about that in just a second. Stick around for that. Hey there, parents and grandparents. Isn't it frustrating when our kids are learning about where we come from, why we're here, all the big questions? Sadly, they're being told we're here by chance. A happy accident with no real purpose. So I'm telling everyone I can about the new powerful documentary, The Story of Everything. It impressed me so much. A dynamic documentary that explores the math of fine-tuning, the code of embedded in DNA, and asks questions mainstream media totally avoids. So let's equip each other and our kids with the truth about the universe and its creator. It's an absolute game changer, the story of everything. In theaters right now, but only through May 6th. And be sure to watch my interview with the executive producer, Dr. Stephen Myers, at thestoryofeverything.film/Larry. That's thestoryofeverything.film/Larry. Get your tickets right now, including a free ticket for students, at thestoryofeverything.film/Larry. Again, that's thestoryofeverything.film/Larry, including a free ticket for students. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I'm Larry Elder.
That's how it goes. Playing in a band, it's a long way to the top if you wanna rock and roll.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are Salem News Channel. One final point about what Dinesh D'Souza was talking about. What you're taught is that because of the passage of the Civil Rights Bill, a whole bunch of racist Democrats became racist Republicans. As a percentage, more Republicans supported the Civil Rights Act of 1964 than did Democrats. And Al Gore's father, a Democrat, was part of the filibuster, longest filibuster in history at the time, to prevent the bill from even coming to the floor. So the question is real simple. Of these Democrats who opposed the Civil Rights Bill in the Senate, how many of them became Republicans? Answer is one. Strom Thurmond. All the rest of them remain Democrats until they died, including Al Gore's dad. Kevin is in Upland. Kevin, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Thank you for calling.
Hello, Larry. Can you hear me all right?
I hear you fine.
Okay, my phone is doing weird things. I just want to point out that we're conflating Democrat, Republican, and liberal and conservative. If everybody took a moment and defined conservative, just looked it up in the dictionary and looked up liberal in the dictionary, we would understand that the two major political parties in America have been on both sides of that spectrum throughout the history of America. But the one thing in common that we have with these racists that pass these obstructive legislation that hurt black people, the two things they have in common is they were conservative and they were white. You could call them a Democrat all you want. They were a white conservative. You could call them a Republican all you want. They were a white conservative, which brings us to today. We look at Donald Trump and the racist things he's doing, like starving the Sudanese, I believe purposely, by trying to by firing all of the black officials at the high end of government that he did.
Oh my goodness!
Qualified people. That he did all of that.
He's fired every black official. He's fired every black official at the highest level.
Not everyone. He fired quite a few. That's the Republican Party today.
Kevin, I'm getting a headache. John F. Kennedy, what would he be today, given his views? He was a staunch believer. Hold on, he's a staunch believer in the Second Amendment, correct?
I believe so.
He was a Cold War warrior. Felt that the Soviet Union or Russia posed a bigger threat than even Richard Nixon thought. Yes, he believed in across-the-board tax cuts, even for the wealthy. Democrats often talk about tax cuts, but they never say they want across-the-board tax cuts, and he did. He was anti-affirmative action. He gave an interview, and he was asked, "Do you think there should be some sort of program for black people to catch up since we screwed over them in the past?" He said, "No, we're too divided. We can just do what we can going forward, but the idea that we should change the rules for black people to catch up would be a non-starter." He said that. Now, abortion was not an issue in 1960, but his sister certainly was an avid pro-life person. So if you look at the array of things that Kennedy believed in, he would be a Republican today.
He just might be, except for the part where he pushed for the Civil Rights Act. Republicans are reversing that today. Trump is taking all of that.
Okay, tell me how Republicans are reversing. Tell me how Republicans are reversing the Civil Rights Act. Tell me how.
Okay. right now, recently this week, the conservative Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act to where 1/3 of people who live in Louisiana are black. The governor of Louisiana as they said, you cannot redistrict based on race. Now, he's taking race
Kevin, I hate to jump in, only because of limited time. You say they gutted the Civil Rights Act. What they did was say the Civil Rights Act cannot be used to create majority-minority districts. You cannot use race to create districts. That's what they said. And in the South, many of the black congresspersons are in districts that were created specifically so there would be a black congressperson, based on the assumption that no longer, in my opinion, has any validity, that white people won't vote for a black person. You look at the congressman from Utah, Burgess Owens, is in a majority white district. Byron Donalds, majority white district. There isn't a single black Republican in a district that's majority black. So the idea at one point that white people wouldn't vote for a black person is no longer valid. Look at Obama. How did Obama get elected in a country that's 65% white at the time, 2008, 2012? How did that happen?
Okay, my turn?
Yeah.
Let's start with Louisiana. 1/3 of the population of Louisiana is black. If the Republican governor of Louisiana gets his way by using race to completely redistrict
by not using race.
There will be no black.
By not using race.
Will have no representation. So he's
What stops
the white race?
Kevin, what stops a black person? What stops a black person from running in a majority white district?
He can run all he wants, but he's not going to win.
How do you know that?
The majority of the Republicans.
How did Bobby Jindal become governor of Louisiana?
Look, he is so afraid of the black vote.
So you won't answer my question. You won't answer my question. How did Bobby Jindal?
Bobby Jindal was not black.
Was he white?
Because he pandered.
Was he white? Okay, because he pandered.
White, no, but neither is Tim Scott, and neither is Byron Donalds.
Well, Tim Scott is from Tim Scott is in South Carolina. How did that happen? He's black.
Exactly.
Exactly what?
And if you look at
so you're agreeing with me? A black person can run in an area that's predominantly white and win.
A black person that doesn't like black people.
Oh, I see. So he's an Uncle Tom. So he's an Uncle Tom. He's a sellout. Exactly. That's why he got elected. Okay. You just now showed the same kind of bigotry that you claim that you oppose. So the only reason that Tim Scott won in South Carolina is because he's an Uncle Tom. Wow. How did Maxine Waters win in her district? Her district is not majority black. The majority of her district is Hispanic. What does that make her? What an incredible thing you just now said, Kevin. I hope you know what you said. Now, when it comes to supplements, there are two things that matter most. It works and you can trust it. Both are absolutely essential. Many hosts have been taking and authentically endorsing Relief Factor for over a decade. That's over 10 years of lending their voice to help you get out of pain free. Why? Because it works. Plain and simple. The creator of Relief Factor returned home from Vietnam as a combat veteran wounded several times. He decided to become a doctor to simply help people, to heal them. He created Relief Factor originally to just help patients with pain and to do it drug-free. When he saw how well it worked, he decided to make it available to everybody. If pain has been holding you back, maybe it's time you found out why so many people, like my brother Kirk, who had difficulty going up and down the stairs in the morning, began taking Relief Factor, made it part of his daily routine as I do mine. Try the 3-week quick start today and see how it works for you. Visit ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com, or call 800-4-RELIEF. That's 800, the number 4, relief.
Oh, yeah. Come on. Get it. The Tallahatchie Bridge. Break it.
Triple 8-971 SAGE 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are Salem News Channel. That was pretty extraordinary, wasn't it? So the Supreme Court has gutted, to use his word, the Civil Rights Act. And the governor of Louisiana is going to prevent black from having any representation. And I said, what's stopping a black person from running in a non-predominantly black district? Gave examples. Burgess Owens is a congressman from Utah, majority white district. Byron Donalds, majority white district. Texas Republican in a district that's not majority black. Representative Jones in Michigan in a district that's not majority black. Tim Scott, senator from South Carolina, a state that's not majority black. Well, he's a sellout. He's Uncle Tom. Wow. You ever watch Harold Ford on Fox News? He's part of the Five. You know, he was a congressman from Tennessee. And he ran for Senate, gave up his seat to run for Senate. His seat, majority black district. Guess who ran to win that seat? A Democrat named Steve Cohen. He's not black. He's still that congressperson from that majority black district. And by the way, when he won his race, he tried to join the Congressional Black Caucus. And they would not allow him to join because they said he was white. He said, but Harold Ford was a member of the Congressional Black District, and now Congressional Black Congress, and now I'm the congressperson from his district. Well, I'm sorry, you can't join because you're white. What do you call that? Doesn't sound too colorblind to me. I mentioned this before. MLK gave an interview, 1964, British television, and said in about 40 years' time there could be a black president. He didn't say in 40 years' time there'll be a black CEO of Fortune 500 company, and there have been. Black president of Harvard, and there has been. Black billionaires, and there are. He said president because he believed that once that happened, we could then say to the fullest extent possible that America has become a society where people are evaluating people based on content of character rather than color of skin. And the Democrats want to put us back to that. They want districts designed for a certain kind of racial representation. That's not what the Civil Rights Act was designed to do. It was designed to stop that. And you want to put it back. You don't want a colorblind society. You want a color-coordinated one. I'm Larry Elder. Let's talk tomorrow. God bless.
What can I say? Mamba out. The mic has been dropped. All across America.
That's enough. Put down the mic.
The Larry Elder Show.
Andy Chrisman of For Him has spent 40-plus years in Christian music, and chances are he knows your favorite artist personally. Now he's bringing you their stories.
I'm Andy Chrisman.
In his new podcast, 1 Degree of Andy, he sits down with the voices behind the songs for real, honest, and faith-filled conversations you won't hear anywhere else.
That's a great question.
If you love Christian music, this is your backstage pass.
The 1 Degree of Andy podcast.
Listen now to 1 Degree of Andy wherever you get your podcasts.